Learn what Bitcoin is, how it works, and why it matters. Bitcoin 101, your ultimate guide to the fundamentals of blockchain.
Hello and welcome back to the show. Today we have Rags to Riches and CryptoHeartBeat joining us from the Hex/Pulse community. Hello, gentlemen. Welcome to the show. How are you guys doing today?
Great. How about you, Britt?
Doing all right. So let's start with CryptoHeartBeat. I wanted to start by talking a little bit about the Hex community. Could you elaborate on what you think brings the Hex community together in such a strong family bond?
Yeah, we're coming up on 3 years, right? That Hex has been live. And if you look at kind of the beginning and origins of this, it was the last bear market when Hex launched. And of course, that was after this just, crash of 17, 18. And, a lot of people, because of so many scams, they see this guy, Richard Hart, come out talking about building a better Bitcoin. And if you're a Bitcoin maxi and somebody says, I'm building a better thing than what you love, they're going to be upset. And I think what's really fascinating is Richard Hart he's an innovator, and he's been doing something that is very pioneering. And that is, how do you really truly use the DeFi principles of, immutability, no admin keys, but then stick to your guns with a product that creates trustless yield, without counterparties. And what has happened is there's a group of people who saw it for what it was. And then, and then a whole other group of people saying, you're just a scammer, you're just a scammer, you're just a scammer. Well, time has revealed the fact that, because of Celsius, because of FTX, because of all this failure, that he was right. Well, the people that went through that process with him, it's kind of like being hazed in a fraternity or, going through, really, really difficult military training, is that you go through an experience which bonds people together and galvanizes their relationships. And that's exactly what's happened in Hex. And so because people have suffered together, there's an element of friendship and bond, and it's close. And there's a lot of love in that process. But one of the things that, people often say is they're like, oh, this is like a cult, cult-like culture. And you go, that to me is one of the greatest compliments, not because of some sort of spiritual leader, but because of the fact that there is such tight bond that you're not going to be able to just pull it apart. And I think a lot of people envy that because there's some regular people, and it's not the biggest community, but boy, it is, I think, one of the most engaged because of what they've had to deal with over time.
Yeah. And if you actually listen to what Richard Hart is saying, he's right a lot of the time, or it comes out later that he was right all along. So I guess before we get into that, Rags, I was hoping you could kind of break down what you believe Hex is in the most simplest of terms.
Yeah, Hex is extremely simple, actually. A lot of people try to complicate it. It's basically this. There's two ways to go about this. You go in a decentralized exchange, you purchase Hex, you hold Hex. That's step one. That's it. The other thing that you can do is go on a decentralized exchange. You can purchase Hex. You can stake Hex to receive a portion of the inflation that is divvied out every year. So much like you have Bitcoin, where Bitcoin miners are incentivized through rewards to secure the network, Hex stakers are incentivized to essentially hold price up by time locking their value and receiving rewards for that. Very simple.
Yeah. So I was hoping one of you could elaborate a little bit more on how trustless yield is possible with Hex.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So from the centralized vantage point, and we've seen the absolute debacle that's occurred from FTX, Celsius, and all of these centralized exchanges or entities that you give your keys to, and you give your crypto to, and pray that the guy that you're giving it to is smart enough to be able to create some sort of yield for you. And if he's not smart enough, what happens? Well, Sam Bankman-Fried, that's what happens. Absolute crash, life savings down the drain, this and that. So what we have here, we have a trustless system in that you keep your own keys, you get to keep your own coins. You don't give it to a centralized entity whatsoever. All you do is interact directly with the smart contract, and you will receive inflation determined by how long you're staking and how much you're staking. Very simple.
And
Yeah,
and how? Go ahead, Matt.
No, I just wanted to also add that, you know, it's a genius development and software development when it comes to what Hex does. Is that, you know, it was a lot easier for people after the fact on their coin to say, hey, we'll create some sort of yield, because we knew that that's popular. People want to make money on their crypto. Richard thought ahead and he said, you know, we have to do this in a trustless way where there's no counterparty. So actually what happens is when you stake, it burns your tokens and you're given a different representation of that reward, which is called a T-share. And, you know, there's a lot of complexity behind that of, you know, how do I get rewards? What are the rewards? How they're paid out? But you don't, like, you have to do the work of burning them by staking. And then you have to actually mint back your action. You click the button out of that smart contract with no counterparty to mint back your rewards. And it's brilliant because there's literally no centralized organization. There's no business. There's no employees. There's no marketing department. It's just literally a piece of code. And so what's really cool is the purity of DeFi is really a narrative story that Richard Hart tells and we all tell, and one contract that you can engage with. And that's it. And so we're seeing the safety and security of relying on the code as law. And that to me is the thing that's always going to shine with DeFi. It's when people get in the middle of it is where there's problems.
Yeah, absolutely. And we definitely don't need any more problems in the space anymore.
Right.
Well, okay. So how much APY is possible with Hex when staking?
That's a good question. So if you stake for the full length, so you can stake up to 5,555 days, 15 years, you would receive currently about 38% APY. So a lot of people use that 38% and they say, well, that's not possible anywhere in the world. How can Hex possibly do it? Well, it's because you're staking for the longest period and you're being paid out inflation. So that's how it is actually possible. If you stake for smaller time frames, the return from interest is going to be much, much less. However, we know that you can create some type of gain by either holding with price appreciation or staking with rewards. And actually, most of gains come from price appreciation. But yeah, 38% is over 15 years if you stake for that full period.
Wow, it's incredible to look at it in those terms. But I guess if you could name like one central or one thing in particular, what do you believe is the most important thing to understand about Hex? The single most important thing.
That's a really good question. You know, I think it's true DeFi. To me, like the bottom line, the most important thing to understand is all these things can be accomplished without counterparties. And, you know, in light of everything that's happened, that's the most important thing. Because in my opinion, those of us who are actually care about DeFi and understand the power of it is that we've got the CBDCs on one side and the government on one side, and we know what their MO is. And then we've got DeFi on the other side. DeFi's promise is ultimately that no one controls it and that it gives us more freedom and sovereignty in the process by embracing something that doesn't have any middlemen. And so to me, yeah, I mean, it is truly true DeFi. That's what Hex is. That's the most important thing. And when you understand that concept, which is multifaceted, you realize, hold on a second, this is what crypto was meant to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is Pulse and why do we need it if Hex is already the perfect product, the perfect system?
Yeah. So one of the issues that we ran into, especially at the height of the last bull market, was the insane fees that were levied upon the users of the Ethereum blockchain. And you know, when you're looking at maybe trying to stake $100 worth of Hex and the gas fees are $70, that doesn't really make logical sense. So Pulse Chain was born out of the necessity to create a cheaper option for people to be able to stake their Hex. It was specifically created for Hex users to not get beat upside the head with fees. So that's what Pulse Chain is. And Pulse Chain is actually, we started out I guess about 18 months ago, we were going to fork essentially BSC, Binance Smart Chain, with a Aurelia consensus. But things have changed since then. Ethereum 2.0 came out, and for a variety of reasons, it made it much more logical to kind of take that code, fork Ethereum 2.0 with some improvements, specifically fees and things of that nature. So that's kind of the direction that we're going now.
Right. And now that I understand a little bit more about that, I'm
Mhm.
curious because with the Ethereum 2.0 upgrade, there wasn't actually anything that allowed to more throughput or lower gas fees. So how is Pulse going to be different?
Yeah, it's
Yes. Go ahead.
just like anything, I mean, Richard always says this, so I'm just going to quote what he says. When one restaurant is busy, you build one more, right? So the ability to have more throughput or lower fees is really just a matter of capacity, right? So, this one's busy, too many people at this gas station, we're going to create another one. So you're right, though, at the core of the, blockchain itself in Ethereum 2, prior to sharding, there's no real decrease, but because there's more capability of volume, because you've got a separate copy on the Pulse chain and all your coins are copied over. And that's a big thing because the system state is going to be copied over. The ETH POW, forks that they've continued with mining have had, kept the system state. This is going to be the first, fork of Ethereum 2.0 that keeps the system state. So you're going to have all your coins, a copy of those over on Pulse chain, which is a huge benefit. But I think that the lower fees function is just the fact that you've got more capacity, because now you've got an entire new layer one that you can engage with copies of your coins.
Okay, so I guess I'm still curious on how it's
Mhm.
going to be more efficient. If it's essentially a clone of ETH, what changes were made to the code to make it better and more efficient?
So a large part of this is we do not know at this point, because we were able to change some parameters significantly with the Binance Smart Chain. Once ETH 2.0 came out and we decided to go with that, there's a lot that we do not know about what they're going to tweak to cause it to be more efficient. So what Matt did say is pretty much one of the main talking points that were discussed prior, which is, if you have overflow, if you can build another chain that has the same projects copied over, the same wallets, the same tokens, and people can easily bridge over, it's going to decrease that load on Ethereum, which not only would decrease fees on the Ethereum side, but it would also have low fees on the Pulse chain side as well, probably lower than Ethereum initially. So there is a lot that we do not know at this point, because there's a lot that has changed. But that is what we know at this point.
Yeah, I like the analogy that Richard Hart and then Heartbeat reiterated from Richard Hart, which was that you open up one restaurant, if it gets too busy, open up another one. That makes sense, and I definitely get it. But I guess let's move a little bit on with that, and I'd like to know, what is the significance of microtransactions on Pulse?
So when you say microtransactions, or do you mean just small value?
Yeah, it is very, very small value transactions across the network.
Well, if you look at like NFT gaming, or any type of metaverse type of transactions, that was one of the big issues with Ethereum's gas fees getting so out of hand. I don't think it currently, even in ETH 2.0's setup, that it's effective for, you want to buy some sort of in-game skin, you want to do something that is a small value. It's not designed for that. It doesn't accommodate that well. What's interesting as far as gas fees in the test net right now with the Pulse chain is that because we've taken Ethereum, so ETH itself, and now we have the ticker Pulse, it's actually diluting 1.2 million to 1. And so when we carry over that equivalent of ETH, the base token Pulse, as we look at things right now, gas is extremely low. Well, that's because there's not much load on the system. And so, in theory, just like it was with Ethereum at the beginning, there are going to be some really cheap fees at the beginning, but as it gets more volume, it's going to get more expensive. The reason to go with 2.0 though is that it's going to also accept the upgrades on sharding, and sharding is really what is the promise for absolutely ridiculously low capacity and lowering of fees. And so that's years out probably, but I don't think Ethereum does a very good job of catering to microtransactions right now because of the costs even today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to see like sub penny transactions
Yep.
so that it will facilitate, look at what happened with CryptoKitties on Ethereum. Great concept. There was a lot of great game concepts that failed ultimately due to high gas fees. So I think any project out there that's capable of utilizing that and then maintaining smaller like microtransactions in the future is going to be the thing that succeeds. So, what are the short, mid, and long-term goals you think for Pulse?
I think that the short-term goals, we want to help onboard a vast majority of crypto into Pulse Chain because of the culture that we have. And the culture is this. I mean, I think Richard Hart really has spearheaded not your keys, not your coins, trustless yield, trustless yield, no administrative keys, immutability, things of that nature. A lot of people say they understand that, but most don't. So I think we have a culture that encompasses that. So short-term goal, just onboarding, right? So we've got the ability for many people to come on because they're going to have the copies on Pulse Chain. So everything that you have in your wallet and Ethereum will be copied over. You'll be able to kind of pick up where you left off. And then, second thing with adoption, you want to see the liquidity increase amongst all the pairs on Pulse Chain. I think liquidity is going to be good for the primary things that are important in our ecosystem, such as, Hex, for example. I don't think that's going to be an issue, but you want to see that infrastructure start to be built out. You want to see developers come over and start to bring cool things over as well. So short, medium term, that's what I would say.
I would add to that also that, when you think about ghost chains and you think about new layer ones that are put out there, I think there's 150 projects ready to go on the Pulse chain, which is incredible at the beginning prior to launch. We have one of those with Texan, but there's also, I think it's really important. People don't really see this or know this. There's actually a vision of Richard Hart for a vertically aligned ecosystem. This isn't just haphazard. He didn't say, well, I'm going to create this store of value in Hex, and then I'll just fork Ethereum. No. The plan is to have a vertically aligned ecosystem where you've got a layer one in Pulse Chain. You've got a decentralized exchange with Pulse X, which has incredible tokenomics. It's actually deflationary, a buyback and burn function, which really puts a lot of buy pressure to help PLS X be more valuable. And then copying the system state, which makes sense. But then the future of this is a wallet, a fiat on-ramps and off-ramps, potentially a stable coin, and potentially a privacy token. And so when you think about all of that, a vertically aligned ecosystem like an Apple, for example, that everything is integrated, kind of one-stop shop, Richard really understands the reason that people sacrifice for freedom of speech and freedom of movement. He understands what's at stake, and he sees the scammers, and it's just the bad actors in general trying to get in the middle of things. And I think that I don't see anyone in crypto who, one, understands DeFi as well as Richard Hart, but two, has a vision for, if we can do all of these things in a vertically aligned ecosystem, we can protect people better than others, because everyone else out there is kind of prowling around trying to devour people and their money. And he literally is an advocate for people in being in safety, because he says it all the time. If people can get crypto right, it can be transformative to their lives. And Brandon and I see this as, it can free the captives. People are captive in debt slavery. People are consumer slaves, and it's hard to get ahead. And the promises of the gains of crypto need to be done, in our opinion, in a safe way, outside of the controls of, the governments, for example, that we know don't have our best interest in mind. And to me, that's, this is this future. We have to protect DeFi, and I think Richard's probably articulating that vision better than anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Richard definitely has his his finger on the pulse. No
Yeah,
pun-
that's right.
no pun. Well, yes, some pun intended.
Pun
Anyway,
intended.
right. Yeah. So there's a couple of things there, and I totally get it, because if you look at like what's being talked about right now in a lot of spaces and whatnot is, oh, there needs to be more education and this, that, and the other, and a lot of influencers are to blame for people getting wrecked and yada yada yada. And I have to stop and sit and wonder, like, how much of the blame can be placed on influencers when, you know, most of the people that come into quote unquote crypto are listening to their friends and their family members first and foremost, you know. So yeah, there is a lot of, I guess, bad information out there, but is it really all of the influencers part? And then you think about the other aspect of this in the crypto side of the community that I feel is a little bit different here, like in the Hex Pulse world, right? Hex Pulse Pulse X, is that it's everything else is so much Ponzi-ish, whereas like somebody has to lose in order for somebody else to win. And I think that's one of the biggest problems with everything else. But I know you also mentioned Texan Token, and I want to get into that too, but you also mentioned PulseX. So really quickly, what is the difference between PulseX and Pulse?
Yeah. So PulseX is going to be the primary decentralized exchange on Pulse chain. So you will have other projects fork over, but PulseX will be the most liquid exchange from day one or day three on Pulse chain. Yeah.
And what do you both believe is the most common little bits of information regarding Hex Pulse or PulseX that you wish people knew the truth about?
Matt, you can take that one.
Okay.
And then I'll take it.
I think you know, and it really relates to your influencer conversation as well, is that, you know, this is the Wild West still. And the beauty of it being the Wild West is you're early still. It's not mainstream. About 4% of the population of the world is in crypto. It's going to be an enormous asset class. It's going to be mainstream at some point. You know, you're going to be able to use crypto at point of sale. It's becoming all digital. And so you have to kind of balance these two things. You're in it early, so you get the gains, but you also have to deal with all of the you know, unknowns. And so you have to be very cautious and do your own research. I think the most important thing I would say is you have to look past, you know, Richard does this this outrage marketing, and he wears all these crazy outfits, and he's, you know, controversial. But if you actually like humble yourself and you come before it and you listen to what he's actually saying and you get it, it's like passing an IQ test. You're saying, hold on, am I just going to be like going with the hype, or am I actually going to drill down and say, all right, who actually is teaching this stuff in a way that is protecting me? And when someone is advocating for you to hold your own keys, you're in control, not them. And the problem is, it's not just the influencers, it's what they're shilling. They're being paid to shill things that have counterparty risk. And to see Richard Hart be so consistent about, guys, the reason that this stuff was set up was to be censorship resistant. Satoshi and Bitcoin and the whole white paper was in pushing back on these government controls of money and bailing people out and all of these things with the crash. And it's like, no, we need to have something that we can have confidence in. And that's what I would say. It's more of the ethos of, why is Richard defending True DeFi? Why is he building this infrastructure? Is because he wants a place where good people can go, where they're not wrecked, because we're not advocating that you give away the most important thing, and that is your keys. And so I think when people see that, and that's what's happening right now, this whole hashtag of Richard Hart was right, and he's getting a lot more credit, it's hard for people to admit, and he rubs their noses in it. However, you know, he's advocating, and I can, you know, dissect what is true and what is not. And, you know, I'm just going to go the way of caution and safety versus, you know, crazy speculation and giving away my keys.
Yeah. And I do a lot of reaction videos to people who bash Hex and Richard Hart in our ecosystem. And I do it in such a way that's very objective. The number one thing that I see on every single video is the fact that it's all subjective arguments and they never talk about how the contract actually works.
Mm.
So if you want to tell me that I'm part of a cult, right? All right. And I drive, let's say I drive a really, really cool car. Let's say I drive some type of, Mustang from the 60s or 70s. Are you gonna call that Mustang cultish as well? No, it's just a tool. You're just driving it, right? Call our community cultish all you want, but that doesn't change the fact that Hex works better than just about anything else out there. And it operates the same way every single time in a trustless way. And you don't have to depend on a middleman. That's what I love about it.
I like what Heartbeat had said about it's kind of an IQ test, because if you look at Richard and all you see is the watches or the Gucci outfits or whatever, it's like you're not really paying attention, right? That's the greatest marketing like plan ever that he's distributing to people, to just pull you in so that you will actually listen to him and get real and good information. Because it's always the person who kind of is the loudest, and you could say his outfits are the loudest, that gets people's attention. And then once they're there, now they can be educated. So I really do think that he's a genius in that marketing aspect to just bring people in. But yeah, I want to get into Texan Token, right, guys? Because you guys co-created this thing together. So what is the significance of Texan Token, and what is the most important thing people should understand about it?
You want me to handle that one?
Yeah, we'll just go back and forth.
Yeah, let me just start with, let me give you a little bit of background. So I worked in the nonprofit space for 22 years, helping nonprofit organizations raise money. And one of the things that's most consistent about nonprofits is they raise money, put it into an account, and it's called an endowment. And the concept of an endowment is what's called a perpetuity, that you would have the perpetuation of cash flow for your organization to function. And we wanted to model and reflect the same functions of an endowment in a smart contract. We wanted to be the first endowment contract on the blockchain. Well, what does an endowment do? An endowment is where you take your principal, you lock it up to receive interest or yield that can be used as cash flow. And so we saw that, there are other trustless yield type of contracts like Hex, but they don't have a function where you can generate cash flow. You'd have to basically set up your staking ladders a certain way. And so one of the things that we did was we said, all right, we want to support, because we think DeFi has a really huge impact on independence. We want to take this endowment contract, the first of its kind on the blockchain, and we want to use it to tokenize a community. So take a community of people that exists and brand them and give them a gift of a smart contract in DeFi that can help unlock value. Well, that organization or that group is the Texas Independence Movement. So the state of Texas has 30 million people. There's about 435,000 people in the Texas Nationalist Movement, which is a nonprofit organization. We went to them because I was working with them, and I said, hey, I believe that blockchain could be an incredible way for you to raise money, because we had seen a sacrifice done for Pulse, which is, Pulse Chain. And part of that sacrifice was an organization called the Sens Foundation, who you could give money to, and that would be how they would do token distribution to anyone who gave. And as a fundraiser, I was like, hold on, this is huge. They raised $27 million in about 19 days. That's unheard of in my business. And so I said, what we want to do, and we talked to our lawyers, we're like, you can't accept any money, right? You cannot do ICOs, you can't sell anything. But what you can do is you can encourage people to give to a nonprofit organization. And so a 501c4 organization called the Texas Nationalist Movement, we partnered with them. We said, we want to give this token, this endowment token called Texan, free, no value Texan token to anyone who gives to the Texas Nationalist Movement in this period of 90 days. About $1.5 million was given to them, and that group of people who gave are who we distribute free, no value Texan tokens to. And so the beauty of this is we help tokenize our community and unlock value there, but also launch with a large group. Well, to this date, we have over 30,000 wallets who have become a part of the Texan Token prior to launch, which is a huge group of people to start with. And so we're really excited about what that means, because in January, the new legislative session happens in Texas, and there's a bill that will put a referendum on the ballot of Texas to let the voters decide in Texas if they want to reassert themselves as an independent nation again. And so thinking about, hold on, you can not only be a part of a crypto project and get token, but you can also be a part of helping birth a new nation, which is the Republic of Texas 2.0. Well, the implications of that are amazing. It's the first time there's been an endowment token, and the first time that a political movement has been tied to a cryptocurrency. And that's it's so exciting, but it's polarizing, right? We've dealt with all kinds of stuff in this process. But what we found is I would say, would you say, Brandon, probably one of the most successful thus far prior to launch with engagement?
Yeah, engagement, and I mean, total wallets.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm not sure if there's anybody in our ecosystem that has beat us out in that way.
That's awesome. So I know I participated recently in 1 million Texan token giveaway, and I was gifted, and I also did the giveaway gift 1 million
Nice.
tokens. So did you guys see a whole bunch of new wallet users sign up for that as well?
Yeah, we did. So when we started, there was 21,790 who did the free claim, and then 6,633 who gave a gift to someone else. And so one of the things, a principle of what we operate from at the Texan Token, and is really just kind of our ethos as a team, is that you have to give away what you want to receive. And that whenever there's anything new, you have to find ways in which you can give, because we're winning together in community. You don't win alone. Just because you write a contract doesn't mean you've got anything unless you've got people who understand it. But you want those people to be aligned with the tokenomics of the token, which is buying and holding. And that's what gives you long-term price appreciation. It props up the price. It helps strengthen value, but it also rewards people for a behavior that really stimulates growth. And so, so that's the essence, is really giving. And so it went actually surprisingly well. I didn't know how people would react, but having this ability to give a gift to someone else, it attracts a certain type of person, because the degens, that doesn't really appeal to people. Like, oh yeah, give a gift to a friend. No, I want mine, and I want mine now. I want an Oompa Loompa. And it's like, nope. These are people who are like, yeah, I've got a friend, or I got my relative or something. And I think we've attracted a much more mature group of people in the Texan Token, and I think the political side of things also has kept out certain people as well. And so I'm excited. I really think that the OG Texicans are going to be really, really excited, and I think we're gonna have the opportunity to make a big difference in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited to see how this goes for everybody. And I'm excited just thinking about the new prospects of what this could mean for the space, not only just now for Texan Token, but also for any other, charitable contributions that may come after it. But I am curious. So how are you building on the Texan Token on a protocol that hasn't launched yet? Like, how does that whole thing work?
Well, it's pretty cool. It's a good question. A lot of people have that question. If you are an Ethereum developer, you're a Pulse Chain developer.
Yep.
All right. So if you can build on Ethereum, you can build on Pulse Chain. So we can build this project in the environment that we have right now, and we can test it, and we can launch it on Pulse Chain when Pulse Chain comes to fruition. So that's the neat thing. It is a system state copy of Ethereum.
One thing that I'll also say, though, is, we've been looking to have Pulse Chain launch for over a year. Mm-hmm. And there's a timeline we have with our partnership with the TNM. And so, one of the big questions that they've been asking us is, hey, at what point do we say we got to launch on Ethereum? Because Pulse Chain hasn't launched, and we're in this process of, we need this to be out in the wild. And so that's a constant conversation we're always having. But I started my channel because of Pulse Chain. And Brandon very similarly has been supporting Pulse Chain things. And so, I always believe that you dance with the one that brought you. And so we're holding out on the Pulse chain, but I don't know how long it is. I don't get any information. I don't have any insider info, but there is the option we have to go out on Ethereum, and knowing that we would get a copy over on the Pulse chain is also good.
Hashtag 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, right. Right.
Oh man, I'm really excited. I really am. So I guess, have there been any setbacks as far as like building on the like clone of Ethereum? Or I know you just explained how it worked, but what kind of setbacks have there been so far, if any?
I don't think there's been any setbacks.
Yeah, it's run smoothly. We've been up on testnet since the 4th of July. Is that right, Matt?
Yeah, we had it all set up before we went out. But what actually has been really good, and I will say this is kind of inside baseball, how the sausage is made. And Brandon mentioned this on his last stream is, there's a community vetting process in the Hex and Pulse community that I really appreciate. There's some really smart people. And so because we review projects, we do interviews on our channels, we want to help get to the bottom of things, and we don't want scammers coming in, scamming the community. Well, that goes all the way around. So when we brought our project, which was fully complete, had a CertiK audit on it, everything was done, there were some comments that were made by some really high level developers that were really good. And so we actually incorporated their feedback, and we changed a significant piece of the smart contract on the treasury to be in a variable versus in a wallet. And it was really good feedback, but it was because of the community vetting. And so it wasn't a setback. It was more of good feedback from people actually spending time in our contract on the testnet going, hey guys, have you thought about this? And it's hard when you've birthed a child like this and you're like, I made this thing. It's hard for you to hear feedback like that. But I really respect our developers to say, you know what, these guys have a point and we need to address this. And so, that's kind of how the sausage is made, but it also is a testament to the community giving their feedback that is genuine.
That's awesome, you guys. And like I said, I'm really excited. Let's see here. I'm kind of wondering if we should start winding down now, because I don't have really any other major questions. Other than, I guess, if you guys had any advice for people building on Pulse in the future, now that you guys have gotten your hands in there and seen what's, dug around and built and whatnot, what kind of advice would you give to anybody else looking to build on Pulse in the future?
I think the first thing, and it's extremely important, I think that you're going to want to spend time getting to know the community. I always say this quite a bit. It's like a very, very strong immune system within our community. If they think you're scammy, if they don't like you, if they don't know you, they're gonna push you out. And that's a big strength of what we offer here. So I would spend time first and foremost getting to know people, hopping on streams, just building relationships. And then beyond that, just make sure that you have everything ready before you decide to make an announcement. Like everything, like your security audit, and make sure that the code works, and make sure that everything is 100% squared away, because you lose a lot of credibility if you come out and it's not done. So you come from a position of strength if you do it the other way. So that's my two recommendations there.
Heartbeat, did you have anything to add to that?
No, I think Brandon is right on. I mean, it's unique. The Hex and Pulse community is unique, like I said at the very beginning, because it's been so galvanized and it's protective of its own. However, it is welcoming to people who are authentic and genuine, that are actually wanting to come in and provide value to the community. It is a new layer one. It can take anything that Ethereum can take. I think the biggest thing though is when you join the Pulse chain, and when you think about, hey, are we gonna, come over, let's say, or we're gonna launch, or we're gonna support a front end for Pulse chain with our tokens, realize that what you're coming into is actually defenders of DeFi, and that if we were to fast forward into the future and we said, all right, all countries have gone to CBDCs, or a lot of them have, and we see all the problems with tracking and social credit scores and people being shut down and authoritarians and, you know, globalists winning on that side, we need to have a place where true DeFi is defended, because I think if we're going to be the resistance, if you will, you know, if we're going to be autonomous, we're going to have freedom and sovereignty, we have to protect it. And Richard Hart, whether you like his outfits or not, is defending DeFi, which is good for everyone. And to me, it has to be as strong or stronger than the CBDCs. And that's the biggest case I would make, is that if you're going to come over, you need to be a contributor to the ethos, which is watching out and protecting people and keeping people from getting scammed, and, you know, helping people understand to not pick up pennies in front of freight trains. Don't give away your keys to people and your coins. And so I love it because it's pure DeFi versus, you know, some slick person's alternative, because all of those things fail and go to zero.
Would you say that's the one most important thing that you hope people take away from the video today?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I don't want people to go through the suffering. I mean, this is a lot of carnage between Luna and Celsius and FTX and Gemini and all these things. I mean, and there's so many more. There's people who have lost it all, and that could have been avoided. And, you know, Richard obviously is going to rub your nose in it and go, I told you so. But it's sad. I mean, I have friends who've lost money in those things, and they kind of made fun of me in DeFi. They're like, oh yeah, that's cute, right? How quaint is that? You're doing things on a DEX. You know, you guys aren't on centralized exchanges. The greatest thing that ever happened to us is not being on centralized exchanges, because we're not hopped up on amphetamines and cocaine trying to get ours now. We're willing to wait and push out and delay our gratification, whereas everybody else is trying to just literally you know, get theirs now. So yeah, that to me is a huge part of this, is that we're actually surprisingly conservative in crypto. It's because we're trying to do things the right way and safe, based on first principles of DeFi.
Absolutely, guys. Well, I think it's okay to go ahead and start wrapping things up. So Rags, did you have any final statements?
Just super excited. I'd encourage people to, you know, check us out. Rags to Riches Squad on Twitter, CryptoHeartBeat on Twitter. You can check us out at Texan Token as well, which is t.me/Texan Token, and then Texan_token on Twitter. And then you can also follow Richard Hart for all Hex related things, hex.com, pulsechain.com, and pulsex.com. Perfect.
Well, guys, I want to go ahead and say thank you again for coming on and sharing your guys' wealth of knowledge with me today, and for doing this video. Like, I really can't thank you enough for taking the time out to chat with me. Anytime. Thank you. All right. With that being said, guys, that is going to wrap it up for us today. Go ahead and smash the like button and hit the subscribe, and we'll see you next time. All right. Bye-bye.
Learn what Bitcoin is, how it works, and why it matters. Bitcoin 101, your ultimate guide to the fundamentals of blockchain.
Thank you for watching. Please make sure to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment below. Share this video with a friend, and also follow us on Twitter at BritneyBits.